sports. Mostly playing sports, not like watching. I like to be really active. So when I was little, I thought that I was gonna be some kind of professional athlete. That's what I thought about my life when I was like, really young, I guess. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we'll move it on to Mel.
I believe that was for Mel. Hi everyone. I'm Mel. Mijada is pronounced she, her, say, yeah. And something I wanted to be when I was a kid. The first thing I remember is I wanted to be a vet. So I was obsessed with Barbies, and I actually got the veterinarian Barbie as a Christmas gift, and I adored it. But as I got older, I realized that I just am really obsessed with cats, not so much all the other animals. So I kind of started looking at other career paths from there. But yeah.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Jessica Rocha.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Rocha. I think, where do I start? At one point, I wanted to be an opera singer, and then realized that was not a gift of mine. And I thought I was going to get into be a musician. Definitely realized that wasn't a gift of mine either. So yeah, I think I moved on to the veterinarian and the teacher, and it's been an ever evolving since childhood. So luckily I found my passion.
That is great. And I think now we're going to move it up to Miss Fabiola Villas. Please correct me if I'm saying your last name incorrectly.
Yeah, thank you. It's Bass. And when I was little, I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people in that way. But then I quickly figured out that I was scared of needles. I'm very terrified of needles. So I was like, well, I can't help people in that way. So now I get to help people in other ways as a counseling intern. But yeah, I wanted to be a nurse when I was little.
Thank you. And then Miss Allred.
My very first memory, my mom loves this story. I announced to her that I was going to be a boy when I grew up because I could have more job opportunities. I wanted to play baseball, and I wanted to work in construction and do things where I could build, right? And then when she told me that that wasn't possible, and then I did want to be a teacher. I used to hold class with all my friends. I would be a teacher and have a board, and we would play teacher. So kind of funny that it came out that way.
That is so cute. All right, Danielle, do you want to take over?
Thank you. Now it's an honor to introduce our panelists. We will start off with Christy Allred, who is in the English faculty at San Diego Mesa College. Good morning, Christy. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and can you please describe your day-to-day responsibilities for your current position?
Sure. Christy Allred, I'm in the English department. I grew up first generation, so I was the first person in my family to be born in the US, and the first person to speak English in my family. I grew up helping my mom learn English as a single mom. So she was determined to, work and support us. So when I went, but oddly enough, when I first said I was going to college, she said, "Oh, good, so you can find a husband." And I quickly told her that was not why I was going to college. And she was always very proud. So I was the first to go to college, first to graduate college. I have an older sister who went back to college at age 50 and now graduated. So pretty cool. Then I knew I wanted to teach at that point, or I kind of dabbled in a lot of other things. I worked for a sports agent, and I worked in the high schools. And then that's where I decided I wanted to teach college. And I had a mentor at San Diego State that inspired me to teach English, and it started at Grossmont, my mentor there. And then that's when I decided to go the college route. And day to day, I'm planning, grading, checking emails. I think I spend more time responding to students than I do planning for the class, which is what I love doing more anyway. Any way that I can facilitate and help students move along, to me, is more productive than doing a lesson plan.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm.
Miss Fabiola Diaz, who is in her current last year of school counseling graduate program at San Diego State University. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and describe to us your day-to-day responsibilities?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a first generation college student. Both my parents didn't get very far in their education. My dad, I think, got up to 3rd grade. My mom, I think, got to high school, but never graduated. So for them, it was always like, you're going to go to college, but they didn't really know what that meant themselves. And I didn't really either. I was just like, oh, I'm going to go to college. So that's what I did. I went to college. And I was pretty lost my first year of college. I started at Mesa, and I really didn't know like what I wanted to major in or what I wanted to do. I think I had just chosen like sociology just at random. But I did join the Puente program, and that was super helpful. I got to make connections with other classmates who had similar goals as me, and I've made some like lifelong friends in Puente. And then I got to see how my Puente counselor helped out other students, and that's really what motivated me to go into counseling. And I was like super shy, and he really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and he was like, you should really get a job on campus and get experience working with students. So that's what I did. I got involved at Mesa. I was a peer navigator there, and I did some other roles as well. And then I really got to see what it was like to work with students in higher ed. And I think that's just where like my passion stemmed from. And then I transferred to San Diego State University. I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology and a minor in counseling and social change. And then I did several jobs throughout my journey there. I was like a college advisor at a high school. I also got to work for a nonprofit organization called MAC with the migrant youth who came over this summer. So I got to do those things and working with children there. And then through my program, I got to do an internship at an elementary school. And now I'm also an intern at a high school and an intern at Mesa College. So I get to see the different counseling aspects in K through 12, but also in higher education, which is really great. And my day-to-day activities consist of just going to school either in person or on Zoom, having those late night days where I leave my house at 7 and I come back until 10 at night because I'm gone all day with school, internship, working on assignments and everything. So just living that grad student life is really great. And I'm just so excited to finally finish my degree and be able to get a career in the field that I want.
Thank you so much for sharing. Our next panelist is Jessica Rocha, who is a newly elected detective. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and describe your day-to-day responsibilities?
Yes, Miss. Again, good morning to our student, staff, and distinguished guests. I've been an employee of the San Diego Community College District for approximately 15 years. And out of those 15 years, I've been in law enforcement and now detective for the last 4 years. Prior to joining the SDCCD family, I did serve my country for approximately 12 years. Combination of active duty time along with reserve. Did deploy 1 year for in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2. And when I came back from that deployment, I was like, okay, it's time for education and getting into the career of my dreams. I acquired my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in forensic science, and currently a prospective student for a master's degree in forensic psychology with ASU. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I needed to add my day-to-day, right? My current day-to-day, I'm currently working on backgrounds for potential candidates, suitable potential candidates. I work on investigation, follow-ups. I do assist our patrol officers with more in-depth investigations, whether it's assisting with a warrant or going to assist on a welfare check. We also conduct the recruitment for this department. So we do work on going to the academies around the city of San Diego and not just the academies, but also the bases, the military bases, to attract some of our students. Of course, we also invite our own students to encourage them to come stop by and do a ride along with us, and hopefully get a good pool of candidates from our own San Diego Community College District communities. And from time to time, I do have to step in and conduct the role of a patrol officer. So I get suited up and jump in my black and white and go keep our campuses safe.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Our next moderator is Melanie Mijares, who is an outreach coordinator for San Diego Pride's bilingual community. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, and can you please describe your day-to-day responsibilities?
Hi, folks. Like Daniela said, my name is Melanie Mijares. I go by Mel, and my pronouns are she, hers, ella. As a bilingual community outreach coordinator, I know it's a very long title, and it actually encompasses a lot. So originally, when I was hired in November of 2019, I was intended to engage with volunteers, work with our Latinx and our bilingual community in Spanish and English, as well as work with our binational team down in Tijuana. Then, as we all know, in March 2020, we all got sent home, and outreach looked very different in the past year. So instead of just going to tabling events, so like resource fairs, attending panels like this, we had to figure out what that looked like, in the new normal. This also meant that I got involved with our youth programs at San Diego Pride. So I now coordinate our youth programs, which include an after-school program that we're still keeping virtual because we're now connecting with students from Texas, from Fresno, from San Francisco, and we wanted to make sure that when we were given the green light, to go back in person, that we didn't just dismiss those students that we've built connections with, and those students have built connections with the students here in San Diego as well. So we're keeping our after-school program on Tuesdays from 4 to 6 online. Then once a month, we also we have them come in person. Actually, this past weekend was the first time we met in person since March of last year. We met at Balboa Park, and they had pizza. They participated in a few different icebreakers, and it was just a blast to hang out with a whole bunch of LGBTQ youth that just were validated to be together. They didn't have to worry about whether people were going to judge them or not. So it was just really beautiful to see them all of a sudden. We turn around and they're playing tag, like they're running all over the park, and it was great to just see them be able to just be kids. So that's pretty much what I do on my everyday life, and a lot of meetings, a lot of emails, but it's all worth it when I get to see our youth and our volunteers.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Now we'll move on to Raul Rodriguez, who is a counselor and co-coordinator for Puente at San Diego Mesa College. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and describe your day-to-day responsibilities?
Yeah, so my name is Raul Rodriguez, and like we mentioned earlier, I'm the co-coordinator with Christy Alred of the Puente project. I serve as a counselor for Puente. That's my role as well. And my educational background, I was first in my family to go to college, first generation. I like that you guys asked that question earlier about what we wanted to do when we were little, because that really was like what I planned almost my whole childhood was to be like. First it was baseball and I wasn't good at it, so I did soccer, which I was much better at. And that was like the only thing that my dad really knew about college was scholarships. So he really supported me through soccer and thought that was my key to getting into college, was getting a scholarship for playing soccer. And unfortunately, I started to like really lose interest in soccer when I was in high school, and my grades were terrible. I was a terrible high school student. So I never thought that I would ever work in education in any capacity. So that was never like my plan. And so I attempted community college one time and it didn't go so well. So I thought college is not for me. I started bouncing around to different jobs and I just couldn't figure my life out. And then finally, I tried again. I tried community college again, and this time I really took it a lot more seriously, and I really treated it more like my job. You know, I really thought, like, if I really want to have a career, I've got to get an education, and I've got to really do this correctly. So I went back, tried again at Mount San Jacinto Community College, which is where, in the town that I grew up in, Hemet in San Jacinto. I went there, and yeah, my second go round was a lot better. I was just sharing this story with another student yesterday, that I got my first A in a political science class that had a reputation with a professor that would never give anybody A's. So that shocked me that I was able to do that. And then it just became kind of like, after that, just kind of like, wow, if I can do it in this class that everybody says is the most difficult, I can do it in any class. So I started to really, get the grades that I wanted to get my whole life that I had never gotten. So started getting nothing but A's, and a few B's and C's here and there, but mostly A's. And I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino with honors. Unfortunately, I didn't get to be part of Puente as a student. I heard about it, and I had heard about it too late. I had already completed, or I was already in the English that I would have been in with Puente. So I didn't get to join Puente as a student, but I always wanted to. So I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino as a sociology major, and I graduated with high honors from Cal State San Bernardino with my degree in sociology. And then I took about a year off because I was pretty burnt out with school and I wanted to work a little bit. And I also shared this yesterday too, with this story that was kind of a regret afterward. I wish I would have just kept going and gotten my counseling degree faster, because I would have maybe been where I am today faster instead of it taking as long as it did. But eventually I went back, got my master's degree in counseling at the same school, Cal State San Bernardino, graduated from there with my master's, and it was thanks to a lot of people that helped me that I got my first counseling job at Chaffey College. So I was part-time as an adjunct at Chaffey College for a little while, and then I got hired at the community college that I transferred from, Mount San Jacinto. So I started working there part-time. And at the same time I was doing that, I also started working at Maricosta College part-time. So I was driving to all three of those schools for a while until I finally got the gig I wanted, which was here at San Diego Mesa College as a full-time counselor. So, and then it took a year from working here to finally become the Puente co-coordinator. And daily duties, activities, we do so much. We not only help students every day, so we help students in appointment sessions, but we also have drop-in sessions. We serve on committees. We co-coordinate programs. All of us have different assignments that we do. Let's see what else. Emails galore. So many emails. so many activities and events that we do. We help organize, that we participate in. Yeah, I hope I'm not missing anything important. But that's about all I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Raul. We actually have a question from one of the students, and it's for Fabi. You've mentioned that you've had a few internships. How do you go about finding those opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So for the internships I've had at K through 12, they were actually through my program because I'm in a school counseling graduate program. We're required to do 800 hours to get the pupil personnel services credential, the PPS credential. So you have to do a few hours or several hundred hours in an elementary school, several hundred hours in a high school. So I found them through my program because they're required. But as for the SEDICA internship, I found that out through my Puente counselor, actually. He was like, do this internship. If you want to be a counselor, do it. It's going to get your foot in the door and you're going to get to learn so much. So to be honest, all the internships I've had have been through networking, finding out through other people. And then I did my own research as well. for Sidika, I was like, okay, like what's the steps to apply? Who do I need to get in contact? How do I prepare for it? So really just networking, but also reaching out to other people too.
That's what you forgot to add on your list, Raul. Helping
was-
people get internships.
Oh, yeah, I know. And you know what's funny? Like as Fabi was saying that, I have that same credential too, the PPS credential thing. So, so Fabi, I know that for those hours you have to have your supervisor has to have that credential. So if you need somebody, got you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I hope that answered that question for the student who asked. So now it's amazing to hear all the great things that you guys are doing in our community. And I think that it's imperative to have mentors to help guide us in the right direction. And now I will begin the questions that we have prepared, my friend Daniela and I really look forward to learning more about your journeys as professionals. So the first question is, I'm sorry. So the first question is for all of you. So what prepared you to get to where you are today? And we can start with Mel.
Sure. And before I start, I want to just apologize if I do turn off my camera. My allergies just started acting up and I just had to turn it off to take a huge sneeze. So, and also there's people talking outside. So can you all hear that?
Faintly.
No?
Not
Okay.
really.
Okay, if you don't mind, if we can move on to another panelist, that way I can close my window. Thank you. Apologize.
No worries. We will then pass it on to Miss Rocha. What
Hi.
prepared you to get to where you are today?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
What prepared you to get to where you are today?
What prepared me? I believe that aside from education, honestly, mentors really pushed me to take that leap, take those risks. It's really hard to make a jump not knowing where you're going to land. And so for me, my mentors really played a significant role in my choosing my career path. Not to mention, of course, my rock, my mother, family. It's always important to include them. My mom was a huge influential person in my life. She always reminded me, you don't want to end up like me, Jess. You want to push yourself. And sure enough, I'm the first one to graduate in my family as well. And so trying to motivate some of my siblings to continue their education. But aside from, I did do a couple of, did volunteer work, which helped me, which helped me network with certain folks from different organizations, law enforcement. I did participate with high schools as well as elementary schools with the youth there, and which now I go back to and serve the community, not just the staff members and the students there, but also the parents at these these high schools and in these elementary schools. Come back and talk to them. Many of them, they always have concerns and questions regarding the children and safety and what's expected. So it's always good to come back and share a little bit of what's going on around the community, crime, the rise in crime, and certain measures to keep in place to keep the children safe. So it's always nice to come back to these communities. Let's see, aside from education and good mentors, great mentors, in internships, I believe self-determination, never settle, never, if you're not happy where you're at, always make sure to strive to and push to be about your better self. So that I think that's key, is to have that self, that strive, keep pushing forward, never settle for less. So I think those are the four main things that have helped me throughout my career.
Thank you so much. Those were all really great advice. And the same question will go for you, Miss Christie.
I think all of us panelists, we have a lot of similarities. But when I started at Grossmont College, I say, kind of going back to the question of what we wanted to be when we were little. So I used to play teacher then, but then by the time I got to Grossmont College, it was like, oh no, I need to do something. Everyone would tell me, if you're a teacher, you're not gonna make any money, right? So I was a business major, then I was a design major, and then I changed my major 3 times. So I was all kind of in the realm of business, and I was working retail, and I was thinking that's what I wanted to do, even though I hated every day of it. And when I found an English teacher at Grossmont, I guess I kind of want to say, I always felt like an imposter in college. Like, I don't even know if I belong here. And she was the first teacher that told me I was smart. And she was the first teacher, she read one of my papers to the class. And she wouldn't tell the class, like, okay, and then she would say, I'm going to read this paper, so it's a great example of this assignment. And all of a sudden I hear my paper being read, right? And I was like, wow, right? So I stayed after class and I told her, I said, I didn't even think I was smart enough to be in this class. And we had this whole conversation. So again, mentors, right? Someone who tells you, you can do it, you belong here, you need to stay here. And this is where you're meant to be. So because of her, I stayed in college, continued my journey. So my education really prepared me. I had a couple of mentors at San Diego State, as I said, who told me, yeah, you can do this. And I had one instructor, he was a visiting instructor from UMass. And he told me to quit college. He told me I was a terrible writer. He gave me back a paper. I couldn't even see my writing on it anymore. And he told me, maybe you're in the wrong place. And I went home just bawling, of course, right? And I'm crying to my now husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. And he was the one who said, F him, you belong where you're supposed to be. You go back and you show him that's where you belong, right? And so, and then I kind of had some other girlfriends that were like, no, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And so I had this whole backing of support system personally, and my mom as well. My mom was super feisty Dominican, and she had a few words for him that I won't repeat here at all. She really was my driver as well, that same, don't be like me, right? Don't be struggling to support a family, always know that you can rely on yourself. And so that was really, and then the coursework that I take, and some great advice from mentors, like, you'll be more marketable as a teacher if you have your ESL certificate. And it's great that you're a creative writer, but most colleges have composition classes. So you want to be more marketable. So I still get to do the things I love, like teach ESL, and I teach creative writing, and I get to do Puente. But then what got me my job was kind of that core degree of having rhetoric and writing. So that advice about how to get a job and be more marketable in the field was key to preparing me for this career. And then even when you get in your career, right, you're still kind of like, what am I doing here? And you have mentors on campus. That I had a lot of mentors on campus that helped guide me and become the teacher that I am today.
Thank you. So we notice a pattern, that it's really important to surround yourself with people who support you and are able to lift you up. That's really great advice. And once again, I will ask Mel, what prepared you to get to where you are today?
Sure, thank you. So I would have to agree with a lot of what folks have been saying. And something Fabi shared earlier about, I know, like you mentioned your parents, like we're always like, yeah, you're gonna go to college, but that was the extent of the conversation. And that was a very familiar experience for me. And I didn't share this earlier, I kind of just talked about my job, but I am the oldest daughter of a single mother immigrant. I'm the first in my extended family to graduate from high school. So yeah, like the conversation, education was something that was just never really valued in my family. It was always like, la escuela pa qué? Like, school for what, right? Like, you just got to work and make money. And my mom, I'm very grateful, had a couple experiences when I was like 4 or 5 years old, where she talked to people that exposed her to a different mindset. So from an early age, she's like, you're going to go to school, but that was it, right? So I was, I'm a graduate of San Diego City College, and I'll share that when I was at City College, by that point I had gotten really good at doing things on my own. Like, my mom was never able to help me choose my AP classes or help me choose a major. She didn't really know what a major was. So I had gotten really good at doing things on my own. So when I transferred to San Diego State, I was like, I don't need anybody. Like, I think I had seen the counselor only for like, when I needed to submit paperwork and stuff like that. But shocker, when I got to San Diego State, like, I needed people. I needed a community. I actually, I definitely experienced what a lot of folks call transfer shock. I was put on academic probation. I almost lost my financial aid. And I was so depressed and so ashamed that even the partner I lived with at the time, and we commuted to school together. She had no idea I had stopped going to my classes for about a month or a month and a half, because I was just so ashamed of how bad I was doing, and I didn't know why. I like to tell folks that after a year at San Diego State and really struggling, I got involved. I like to tell people, like, I saw the light, and the light said EOP, and which is very similar to EOPS but different. It's at San Diego State, and there I got a job on campus, where they understood that my first and most important job was being a student, and they supported me in everything that they needed. Right, I got to meet other students that were on the same boat. It was the first time that I had a study group. Like, people would tell me study groups, and I was like, what? I was like, I don't need that. I got this. But like, just finding a community that shared experiences, finding first generation, low income. A lot of us were students of color. Finding a community that shared a similar goal, even if your major was different, right? And something that I'm so grateful for is definitely the mentors I got from these experiences. My 2 supervisors at EOP, and I'll give them a shout out in case any of y'all go over there, but Roberto Guzman, who's now a counselor, and Cynthia Torres, who's now the director of Undocumented Resource Service Area Center. I'm not really sure what it is now, but I give them a lot of credit. I feel like they saved me, and they always are really good at reminding me, like, you did the work you needed to get out of like where you were, right? And I'm like, yes, and you were instrumental in me being able to feel like I had it in me to get out of that depression and out of that shame that I was feeling. So definitely these mentors, and they were the ones that introduced me to job opportunities. They introduced me to people, and they taught me the value of networking. For me, always networking felt very transactional, very here's your business card, here's my business card, what can we do for each other, right? And that just doesn't jive with me. I rather build genuine connections with people. And if I leave a networking event with one connection that I feel like, wow, that was a really impactful conversation, that's the type of networking I like to do. And they taught me how to do that, right? Or they coached me in how to do that. So I really attribute, EOP to a lot of my success, the connections I built there, everything from the students who we co-mentored each other, right? So the students there, the supervisors I had while I was in undergrad, and who are still people I reach out to this day when I'm like, hey, I'm considering this job, I'm considering advocating for higher pay. Do you have time for coffee? Maybe we can kind of hash this out before I really approach it. And yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Thank you so much. We have a question from a student, and I'll ask it for you, Ms. Rocha. And it's, how do you inspire students or youth to develop self-determination?
Develop self-determination. That's an excellent question. How do I inspire to develop self-determination? quite frankly, when I've talked to some of our youth at high schools, or mostly high schools, especially our seniors, I, I mean, of course, after having a nice personal conversation and figure out where they want to go in life, we honestly, I think it's something that has to come from within. You have to know what your passion is. I know that I know for me, it took some time to realize exactly where I wanted to go, what path I wanted to take. But I truly believe that it's something that you, I mean, we can coach and talk to these kids, but it's really going to be up to them that self-motivation has to come from them to push themselves. And what I do for them is encourage them to follow the path that they want to follow, and provide the resources or people that can help them along the way. I've also, some of you are high school seniors, after they graduate, they've come out on a ride along with me to show them exactly what we do, and if it is for you, because a lot of them are very passionate. Hey, this is what I want to do, but not until they jump on a vehicle with you and realize what's going on out in the streets. And I think that really helps them determine exactly what they want to do in their life, or maybe the role of law enforcement is not for them. So I think what I can do for them, aside from coaching and providing advice, is giving them those options, resources, making myself available for them. And because all these kids have my phone number, my email address, they call me, hey, I'm joining the military instead. What advice can you give me since I'm going this route? So I always make time for our youth. And yeah, just making myself available for them to make sure that they can always reach me at any time. And if they have a change of heart and they want to go a different direction, then let's tackle that direction. But I believe that self-determination has to come from you. And yeah, that's my spiel on that one.
Thank you. And I think that Ms. Allred would also like to share something involving that question. So we'll pass it on to her.
Yeah, I love that, about that kind of finding what your passion is, because that passion drives motivation. And I would add to that confidence. So like giving a student, like letting them believe in themselves, at least from my personal experience, right? I had to find first that confidence in myself, and then and then that determination came. And I also, when I talk to students, I always say something like, when you're watching a movie and you're like, this movie's so-so, but I want to see how it ends. See how this ends, right? So here you are on this journey, and you're the players in this scene. Like, the ending's really good, just stick it out, right? And so I kind of like try to think of it that way, because that's always something that I do. Like, even if a movie's like, I'm not sure if I should finish this movie or not, I always think like, oh, it might have a really good ending, right? So I'm going to stick it out and see. But yeah, that passion with that is so important to get that determination.
Absolutely.
Daniela?
Sorry. We really appreciate you guys sharing this for us, because I know a lot of us can relate to feeling indecisive about majors or feeling discouraged. Sharing the things you have done to prepare for where you are today is a good reminder that we can achieve anything we work hard for. Is there anyone in the audience that can relate to our panelists' stories? You can put it in the chat.
Thank you. And then I have another question for Ms. Rocha. I read in your bio that you're also an immigrant. So I was wondering, in what ways do you think that being an immigrant made you a stronger person?
Oh, well, that's a good one. My mother, immigrant from Guadalajara, Mexico, father from Cuba. So there was definitely some challenges along the way. It wasn't easy, and I know it wasn't easy for them when they shared their working in the fields. You know, the first few years uh, of their time here in the States. Not only that, I remember my mother telling me that she'd bring me to the fields with her when she had to go to work because she had no daycare. So it's definitely influenced uh, my pursuit for education and better life. And yeah, it's rough. Not only that, I grew up in the barrio of Logan Heights in Sherman as well. And of course, living in the barrio can be a little rough as well. But you know what? I think that did make me the person who I am today. Uh, and when I go back, it's always nice to either talk to our former neighbors that are still living there, or even family members. And although Logan Heights is looking very beautiful now, and it's they're revamped, you know, we still have a few challenges to tackle there, but it definitely makes you grow a little faster living in the barrio. So I think ultimately my childhood, and the struggles that my family went through has certainly influenced where I am today, and giving back to those communities, giving back to people in need, because we were there at one point, you know. So never forget where you come from. That's for sure. Never forget where you come from.
You're a more compassionate person.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
So do you think it made you a more compassionate person?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Only because we did go through it. We did live poverty. We did, you know, live out of government welfare for throughout my childhood. So yes, absolutely. And this is why it is important for me to reach out to our communities, to our youth, our elementary schools. I always go back to Sherman. I mean, I graduated from Sherman, and Sherman, there's a definitely in my heart. So I always go back and talk to the kids, staff, and the parents. You know, a lot of low-income families, and it's always nice to go back and help these families out, whether it's during the holidays or we usually, as a department, we also like adopt a family, for example, from the community, or even from our campus community as well, and help as much as we can. You have to be compassionate, and especially in this career field. Absolutely.
Thank you.
My next question is for Mrs. Allred. What influence has your family and culture had on your career choices?
Wow. Family for sure. Because my mother, again, growing up with a single mom was always do some things to support yourself, never have to worry about money, don't rely on a man, right? I would hear these kind of mantras almost weekly, right? Yet at the same time, she was kind of traditional with, you know, get married, have kids, right? Like I would get a good job and don't rely on a man, and oh my gosh, I'm going to die before you have kids, right? So I would get these kind of conflicting messages, but always very supportive. And so I think ultimately it was, I just want to do something so that I can financially help her, and also have her be proud and know that like I was the one who graduated, right? And I was able to help her. So that was a big influence. Culturally, my father was Hungarian, my mother Dominican, and I just identified more with the Dominican side because I lived with my mother and we celebrated all the traditions. And I think that, you know, some of my decision, I think, to work with Puente was hearing my mom's story of immigration, and and her struggle with education, and really her family not wanting to support her education. So she didn't, she dropped out and got married and had kids. And so for me, it was, okay, I'm going to show her I can do both, right? And so that was probably culturally, that was my influence in terms of just thinking, I still want to celebrate the Dominican side, and at the same time, break a little bit of those barriers and cultural stigmas.
Thank you.
Yes. And now, Mel, I was wondering, what difficulties have you faced as a queer woman in the Hispanic community?
Yeah, I can also relate to some of the things Mrs. Allred was talking about this expectation of like, you know, you're just gonna grow up and be married. And that's been the expectation in most of my extended family. That's why earlier I said, like, I was very lucky that my mom got exposed to other ways of thinking and saw the value of me, you know, getting an education. Because even though I mean, I was really young when she kind of came into that understanding. But you know, so even though she never herself like pushed that on me, like it is definitely other societal pressures that I got from like the rest of my family, right? I mean, there's all these memes and gifs and reels like that joke about how the tia, you know, like your aunt, when you show up there, the tia's always like, y el novio, like where's your boyfriend? And I can't tell you how many times I got asked that question. And to be honest, like I never came out to my extended family because they are no longer in my life, and I just feel like I don't owe them coming out to them. I think they know at this point, but it's fine. But anyways, so yeah, like so when they would ask me, like my family, my immediate family and my friends and my chosen family, like everybody already knew, right? So they didn't ask me like where's your boyfriend at, or like when are we gonna meet a boyfriend. That was like a constant thing at family parties until I stopped going, right? And I think at a certain point they started kind of wondering because they hadn't met a boyfriend since I was like 13. So, but they like still kept asking, right? So definitely that expectation of like the traditional heteronormative or heteronormative marriage was definitely an expectation. But it's actually really interesting because like since I was like a little kid, my mom always brings this up that I was always a why child, like the question por qué, like because literally there's videos of me like in, I don't know if y'all remember those huge, I was born in 91, so like I still experience some of those like huge like, you know, video cameras where you would actually put like a VHS cassette in it. So there's like these old VHS cassettes where I'm like asking like, but why and a lot of times like I would see things happen in my family. I was raised Catholic, I was raised a girl, right? So, and I was always asking why. And so when I got to college and, you know, I majored in sociology, like, so I fell in love with it because literally that's what we did. We talked about why we had these, you know, social norms or social cultures. So I'm really grateful for like the educational path I've had the experience in, because I feel like it finally gave me the language to question those cultural norms that were just accepted. And I'm not gonna lie, it was, you know, it's still a journey, even with my immediate family. They're very supportive and very loving, and I'm very lucky to have never been pushed out because I am queer. It's more the journey part is because I want to be like, but this is the way it is, you know, like this is right, this is wrong. And I have to just remind myself that I need to be kind, I need to be understanding that that's all the information my mom has grown up with, right? So I don't know, like in my feminist development, like I have had to come to the understanding that I need to meet people where they're at. And, you know, like me having this language and this knowledge is a privilege. And me like coming off like attacking my family for saying the wrong thing or saying something problematic is elitist at the end of the day, right? So you know, I just have to balance that, like, and I really hate this word, but for lack of better words, like I need to balance like my woke like brain, right, with like my family norms and stuff. And they're doing a really good job at like they're trying, right? Like they are catching up. I've been out to my immediate family for over 10 years at this point, and they have done a lot of progress. but it's not going to be like that, right? Like it's not going to be overnight. So patience has also been a challenge, but I think I'm getting better at it.
At those times that you had faced adversity, what do you think has helped you to push yourself forward?
My chosen family. And that's basically, my immediate family is great. And also sometimes, family is family. So the chosen family that I have been able to build through, through school, I was involved in EOP and some of our student organizations there. That translated once I graduated from college, I continued looking for activist spaces. So, I currently volunteer for California Latinas for Reproductive Justice. I volunteered with ACLU in the past. I volunteered at the center for 10 years where I facilitated an LGBTQ women's group. So I'm always looking for spaces where I can find people that, that I can connect with on a variety of different levels. And when, excuse me, when I do experience like an adversity or hardship, usually the connections I've been able to make through here, through these spaces, are what helped me through. Something that, over this last over a year at this point, with everything that's been going on, with BLM has been around for a very long time, but with everything that happened, during the pandemic, I actually found even before everything really took off during the pandemic, I connected with this organization called Nalgona Positivity. And it's, look it up, they're amazing. They're called Nalgona Positivity, and they created a Gorditex group online virtual for, different basically fat folks and fat women and queer folks to connect and find community online virtually. And this group, we've continued to meet since there. And a conversation we had one time was over this last year, a lot of questions have been coming up and it's been really freaking tough and anxiety has been through the roof. And, but we ask ourselves, if we could go back, would we not take the class that taught me about feminism? Would I not take the class that taught me about fat phobia? Would I not volunteer at the space where I engaged in conversations about Black Lives Matter? We were questioning these things and we all said, would we go back and change that, knowing the anxiety and the depression it has caused in the recent year? And no, we all agreed that we would still go back and do that because we have been able to build genuine friendships and connections with people because of the things that we have learned. So, these connections that where we know we know it's okay to communicate boundaries. We know how to show up for each other and that friendships should be two ways, right? All of those things I have learned through these experiences are what helped me get through the hard times.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And Daniela, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, we had a question from the audience for our counselors or interns. How do you use your own personal experiences to inspire or motivate your students to accomplish their goals? For example, transfer to a 4-year university or get an associate's degree?
Maybe Ms. Beas can answer this question.
Yeah, sure. And then I think I also saw Raul unmuted. So if it's okay.
I was just gonna say this, pass it over to you, Bobby.
Well, thank you. The way I use my personal experiences, so there's a lot of stigma around community college, and I'm very passionate on dismantling the stigma because, in high school, I was in the AVID program, and my senior year, when I decided I'm going to go to community college, my AVID teacher was like, why are you going to go there? You have good grades, you should go to a 4-year, what are you doing? Community colleges are failures, you're never going to transfer, all the negativity. Same thing, hearing it from counselors. It's the 13th grade, all that stuff. And so when I started community college, that's why I started super lost. And I just felt bad that I was there because it felt like I hadn't gone to my full potential of going to a 4-year, So the way I use that is I'm an intern at a high school right now. So I let students know that it's okay to go to community college, and I let them know, like, I transferred, I've had friends who transferred, like transferring is doable, it's possible, and college isn't for everyone too. I let them know, you know what, college isn't for everyone. I use other examples from like other friends or who have gone a different route, or maybe they've gone the trade school route, vocational, or things like that. And I let them know that community college is really great, because I think it's a great place where you can do some soul searching. You can see, do I want to get a certificate, associates, transfer? There's so many different possibilities there. So yeah, I just let students know that it's okay to go to a community college and they shouldn't feel bad, and that they should treat going to a community college just as they would as a 4-year, because every campus has its own vibe. City is very different from Mesa, from Grossmont, like Miracosta. They all have their different vibes, their own things that they're good at or that they might benefit students. And also letting them know to treat it too like a 4-year, build community, outreach, get internships, do your best there, get involved too, not just like go to your classes and then go home, but like get involved, because it starts there. Even if you're at community, like your whole education trajectory starts there. So really build it up from the ground up. But yeah, just letting them know that it's okay if they choose to go that route, and that just to ignore all the haters, ignore all the people who are saying negative things about going there, and that it's possible to transfer, letting them know that there's resources and things like that. And for a lot of students, I think also community college is a second chance for them. Especially I've seen it with my students in high school who don't have the best grades, and they're kind of told like, oh, well, because you don't have the good grades, you can't go to college. But that's not true. They could always start at community college and then decide if they want to transfer or not, or see where life takes them. So I'm always a very big advocate for community college if that's the route that they choose to go to.
Thank you. I feel like it's really important that, you're working against that stigma, because I think a lot of us have been hit with that same commentary, and it's very annoying. We have a question from another student. I'm sorry, did someone say
Danny,
something?
if it's okay, just to touch on that stigma, I appreciated everything you just said, Fabiola. It was brilliant. And I just wanted to share from personal experience. I was on the 4-year track to go straight into a 4-year, like straight from high school. And senioritis hit, and my acceptance was revoked, and I ended up going to San Diego City College, and I felt like a failure, right? Because it was like all this wasted time and energy. Looking back, I see it as one of the biggest, I'm not even religious, but one of the biggest blessings that has ever happened to me, because first generation high school graduate, right? Like first generation college student. I had no idea what I was doing. And it took me 7 years to get my bachelor's degree. And at first I used to feel a lot of shame about that, because I was full-time the entire time, and I went into college at the college level, right? Like I never had to take any remediate classes or anything like that. But because of grades, because of life, because of coming out, because of like different situations, right? Community college actually provided the space for me to be able to process everything without, like, there's still consequences, right? But like without the consequences that some of my friends faced at a 4-year university. They experience a lot of hardships as first generation college students at San Diego State, at Santa Barbara, in San Francisco. And unfortunately, a lot of them ended up getting kicked out because of bad grades, or ended up dropping out because they had to come back home to help family or whatnot. And a lot of folks don't realize that once you have to leave a 4-year university, sometimes it can be really hard to go back, like whenever you do choose to go back. So community colleges sometimes is the best option for a lot of us. And I also really appreciate what you mentioned about vocational schools or other type of training or whatever, because you're completely right. I think in the society, we really push students for like college, but like, what does that really cost, right? Like, it's just costing, like I work with youth, and the amount of pressure these kids are under, like I have met so many youth, like not even in just in the LGBTQ community. I used to work with Latinx youth and with youth in South Bay, San Diego. And a lot of them like literally go into depression. Like they are diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. And a lot of that has to do with the root of like, you have to get into college. So I think you're like everything you said was beautiful. And I completely agree. In my personal life, I'm like, I work at a nonprofit, y'all. I know so many other people. My partner, for example, is a dog groomer and makes much more money than I do. So like you don't have to go into debt or go through a college or educational thing that you like maybe that's just not your vibe, and that's totally okay. There's so many other options. You just need to talk to folks that to help you expose you to other options.
Thank you so much for that.
Can I just add one more quick thing?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, you two said it both beautifully, and I just wanted to add that I always like to just remind students that everybody has their own timing, like their own process, you know, to getting to that goal. So I like how you said, Mel, too, about the pressure of like, go to college and do it in 2 years, you know, transfer in 2 years and get to the university and graduate in 2 years from the university. And that's not the same story for everybody. Like, I like how you shared that. It took you 6-7 years, yeah, to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's totally fine. Everybody has their own process and what they need to, the amount of time that they need to take, and that's okay. And I think I like to always remind students of that, and I share my story because it didn't take me, 2 years to transfer, and I wasn't successful in the first attempt either. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And actually, my next question is for you, Raul. Someone in the chat asked, I would like to know if of the fact of not speaking English perfectly, was that an impediment to get ahead and integrate into the educational community?
Well, for me, I mean, I don't know if that's really a great question for me to answer, because my first language was technically Spanish, which is really weird because now I struggle to speak Spanish. You know, it's my mom, she only spoke Spanish, but she passed away at a young age for me. I was only about 7 when she passed. And after that, we didn't really speak Spanish at home anymore. And so I just kind of lost touch with it, you know. So, you know, I have a lot of family in Tijuana that we used to visit every weekend when she was alive. And then my dad just stopped taking us, you know, and now I understand why, now older. But as a child, I was just like, why aren't you taking us there anymore? And just kind of resenting him for it and stuff. But it's weird because yeah, technically Spanish was my first language, and I think I even got held back a year because of it, if I remember correctly. Like, I was in kindergarten, so I don't really remember what was going on or anything. I was just kind of going along for the ride, you know. And my mom was already sick during that time, so school was kind of just at the back of my mind. But I didn't really struggle with learning English. You know, so it's kind of not really something that I can relate to, but I understand that there's a lot of people that do have to go through that and learn how to speak it, how to write it, how to read it, and it's much more difficult to do that as opposed to someone who starts off already knowing the language. So I do understand that it's a really difficult barrier for a lot of students. It's not an even playing field.
Thank you. And Ms. Allred, I think that you might also have some advice on this. And to add to that question is, how do you go about working on that and solving that issue?
My story is very similar to Raul's. So my mom, I spoke Spanish first, but as soon as I started kindergarten, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 5. And so I started kindergarten, and I would come home and my mom would say, teach me what you learned today. And so we spoke English every day. My sister's fluent, my father's fluent, my mother was fluent, and then I lost it. So I struggle. I understand much more than I speak. But so it wasn't as much of a barrier in terms of my process of education. I think mine was more the stigma of having cultural aspects in school, right? That I didn't understand, being made fun of because of the kind of food I brought to school, or you know, or people coming to my house and then telling me my mother was weird, and why do you have all these, you know, virgens in the house, and why, and all this kind of things that culturally, people that I lived around didn't understand, but it wasn't as much the language. So there might be another panelist that had more of a language barrier. Was there a second part I forgot to answer?
No, just trying to
Okay.
see if maybe there's another panelist that would like to add to that.
To address the language.
Mm-hmm. No. Okay, so then we will move on to the next question. And sorry, Daniela, do you want to go ahead and ask yours?
Sure. This one's for Miss Jessica Rocha. What is the most rewarding aspect of your career?
I believe, for me personally, the most rewarding has been the community outreach. Being able to, like I said, go back to the community where I grew up in, go talk to our neighbors, go to a local church where I grew up in, go talk to the kids at the Sherman Elementary School. Those things to me are probably the most rewarding. Being part of the community, certainly it just feels great to go back and help as much as possible. But also being part of participating in events such as Shop with a Cop, every December. I look forward to those things, taking a kid under your wing, taking him to Target, and he splurges for a day. I mean, to me, that's amazing to see their faces. To me, those events are huge. Anything having to do with the community, when we participated in events like the Pride events, the parade, or any of the San Diego Community College District parades that we participated in, those things were awesome. To me, those are probably the most rewarding and the ones that stick most to hear. Very dear to my heart. So no, I think community, just going back to my community outreach is huge for me. And or having even the community reach out to us or to me, and being able to help as much as we can. It's always nice. So that's huge. It's huge for me, and I'm hoping to continue that, and being able to reach out to the communities more, mending our bridges with the community as well. So doing as much as we can to participate and be a little more approachable, because I believe a lot of times we're not as approachable, and so it's nice to just go out there, talk to people, and engage with them, especially with kids. Students are awesome. So yes, definitely looking forward to more of that.
Thank you. That was really sweet.
I remember in middle school, there was a police officer that came and visited the school all the time, and it was really nice to connect with them, and that really imprinted into me. So I can relate to that. My next question is for you, Fabi. I was wondering if there's anything in the Latinx professional or any community organizations that you recommend that students get involved to help them prepare for the workforce.
Yes, I'm like, let me think. I would say, first of all, just get involved on campus in any way that you can, because just on campus, there's already so many organizations. I know transferring to, there's lots of other organizations, like Mel mentioned EOP when you transfer, or even just EOPS, Star Trio at the community college. Even just by being in those organizations, you already find out so much. Like, I know those organizations will host like career panels or career networking socials too. And then definitely, if you're going to transfer, looking for those transfer organizations, transfer student organizations. As for other Latinx organizations, I haven't been a part of too many. I was a part of a nonprofit organization called MAC. So I got that one. But yeah, I wasn't a part of too many. It was mostly like student organizations that I was a part of throughout. So I don't know if anyone else would like to answer that question.
Can you remind me what the question was? I'm sorry.
Yes, of course. Gotta find it.
What other Latinx community outreach organizations would you recommend that students join to be connected?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. There is another nonprofit as well. Like if you're just looking to get connected with Latinx professionals, it's called Mana de San Diego. They host a lot of, well, in the typical year, to be honest, I don't know what they've been doing in the last year because I haven't been super involved. But in the typical year, they host networking events where actually they host some of the largest Latinx networking, well, Latino networking events in San Diego. So if you're looking to just kind of, like network, like talk to people, that's a good opportunity to kind of start off. I have met some really cool people through there. But I would definitely echo what Fabi mentioned about student organizations, because a lot of times the folks there, they're connected to everyone on campus. And also a lot of times they already know a lot of people out of campus. So like I mentioned earlier, like the folks that I knew at San Diego State are actually some of the folks that introduced me to my next job. Once I was one of the lucky folks that got a job right after, I graduated. So definitely like ask around, right? Like a lot of people are totally open to having conversations about like, hey, like, is there any organization or any step you think I should take to to help in the next path or next part of my career.
I'd also like to add, just listening to Mel got me thinking too, is, we're all kind of fumbling like, oh, which ones, right? I would also say, look for organizations or community groups that you don't see any brown faces, and be brave and be the representation, right? And get involved and see where we can make a difference with our voice and our presence and break some of those barriers. That's a little harder probably, but they're there, believe me. Like even on our campus, right? There's groups where it's where the diversity isn't where it should be, and that's where we can get involved too and make a difference.
Thank you. And then I have a question for Ms. Rocha again. So the police careers have historically been male dominated. So do you think that you have to work even harder in order to get to where you are while also being part of a minority?
Yes and no. It's still very male dominated, very similar to the military. But honestly, especially going through the academy, you have a class of 80 students and maybe nine ladies. Now, it can at times be a little bit discouraging considering that we all have to keep up with both male and women, right? But to me, it just pushed me to do even better, to stay on top, to keep pushing forward and not allowing those things to hold me back. So no, I don't think it's I don't know that it's deterred me from or made my job difficult. I have encountered a few things out in the field while working on patrol, and it's more of the statements from the public, hey, your female is the male's, job force, like pretty much get the hell out, pound sand, right? And it's you just let those comments just roll off your shoulders, because you don't want to entertain that. But so no, within our department, yeah, it's a little, it is a little more difficult to attract women to the workforce. But you know what, just thinking about a lot of my ride-alongs, just the last 4 ride-alongs have all been women. So we're definitely trying to reach out, and a lot of them were actually high school ladies who were looking forward to or looking into joining the workforce, the law enforcement workforce. So I'm not sure exactly whether they followed that path or not, but I don't, it wasn't difficult for me. I just knew that I just had to keep up with the rest of my class and not allow that to deter, push me down, or no, not at all.
Well, thank you for answering. And now we're actually going to move on to the last question. And it's now that we have shared all that, if you could do it all over again, would you change your profession? And do you have any words of wisdom for the students? And we'll move down the panelists, starting with you, Raul.
Can you sorry, can you repeat the question one time? If I could.
If you could do it all over again, would you change your profession? And any words of wisdom for us students?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't change my profession if I could do it all over again. However, there are things that I wish I could have done differently. I wish I could have done it faster and things like that. But I think, you know, we can say that about a lot of things, and I think it's important to remember, is just like we talked about earlier, that everything happens in your own timing. Sometimes you've got to go through things to learn, to develop. We can't be afraid to fail. Like, it's failure is the greatest teacher, right? So you got to take those risks sometimes, and you're gonna fail, but then you keep going, you try again. You know, there was lots of times that I got rejected. There was lots of times where I applied for things, applied for scholarships, applied for jobs, and I didn't get them. I got rejected. So I kept pushing myself, kept going. I think that's what's important, is that you keep going, and that you get to your goals eventually. But like I said, it's in your own timing. It's you don't want to put so much pressure on yourself to have a certain amount of time to accomplish something. So yeah, I definitely would not change my profession if I could. But there were some things where I wish I could have done them a little bit differently in hindsight. But it's like, hey, if I could go back and do those things perfectly, would I really be to where I am? Because I'd be a different person, you know. So because I'd be missing some of those experiences that I had. So I guess that's a complicated answer to that question, but no, I would not change it.
Thank you. And now we will go to you, Mel.
I am going to share the same thing Raul said about, like, it's a complicated question, and that's and I'll tell you why, but I want to be very transparent. So working in the nonprofit world, we unfortunately have to, we sign up to basically get paid not the same as like working in the private sector or even sometimes in the public sector, right? I'm very lucky that my pay is very competitive compared to other nonprofits. But when I see the job postings out there where they're requiring a bachelor's degree, they're requiring a master's degree, I'm gonna flat out say it's ridiculous the amount that they want to bring in somebody with a bachelor's that maybe has $20,000 in student debt, and they want to pay them $30K for the year, right? Like, with the cost of living in San Diego, like, that's just not realistic, and it's just not fair, right? We got student loans to pay, we got X, Y, and Z going on, right? So I wish that was different about working in the nonprofit sector. But that's a whole other conversation that we can probably have a whole panel on. But would I change it? No, because I really like what I do. I love working with youth. I love working with a Latinx and our binational and bilingual community. I love working with queer folks where we get to talk about queer things all the time. And granted, like, this isn't what I've been doing my entire career, right? I used to do this as volunteer. I used to work with Latinx students. I've just been working with students as a whole for a while. And even though, like, the pay is always not great, the cost of living in San Diego doesn't really match up with the pay at nonprofits, I still wouldn't change it because of the warm, fuzzy feelings that come from working in this field, right? Like I mentioned earlier, this past Saturday when I got to see our youth for the first time, and I don't even remember how long, like, it was just so great to just see them, like, just be able to be kids, like, not worry about like how they were dressed, how they're expressing their gender. So like that makes it kind of like all worth it. And then in terms of, advice, I, oh my gosh, I had something and I totally spaced, but yeah, I was just gonna mention about basically when a lot of times we'll feel like we are doing something wrong, right? Whether it's the timing thing, whether we failed the class that we really needed to pass, or we didn't get a job that we wanted or whatnot. Um, I think like it's just important, like it's a reminder to be kind to ourselves, like to give us some grace. A lot of times the feelings that we're feeling, like we're not the only one. I know we often hear that, but like trust me, when you are stressed about applying to school, when you are stressed, when you do transfer and you feel like you don't know anyone on campus and all these things, like those are feelings that you're not the only one experiencing. And I know it's really hard. Once you're in that place, it's really hard to get out of there and try to find a community. So my advice to folks is always like, try to find that community while you're doing good, right? Like, just like we should try to find a therapist before something really bad happens in our life, right? Because when you're dealing with heavy stuff, it's really hard to go out there and try to find a community. So definitely get involved on your campus right now, because even that itself is a learned experience. I struggled when I got to San Diego State, and it took me a year to figure it out and kind of prolonged my process. What I wish I would have done different is getting involved at San Diego City College. But I was a serious commuter. Went to class, left, never attended anything. And I wish that would have been different, because I probably would have had a community where I felt supported and connected a lot sooner. And that would have taught me how to do that, at a foreign university. So you're not alone. You don't have to go through it alone. So try to find your community, whatever that is.
Thank you so much. Then Ms. Rocha.
Yes, I'm gonna try to keep this short. I would not change a thing. I wouldn't change my career path. However, like Raul, I wish I would have started a lot sooner. I wish I would have taken that leap of faith a lot sooner. I don't want to say procrastinate, because I think most of it, to be honest with you, I think it was a fear
why he's throwing up.
of a failure, a fear of the risk that I was about to take. Making that leap was huge for me. So bottom line, I would not change my career. But with that being said, I want to make sure that I did learn something from this, and it's to take chances when it comes to especially when it comes to your lifelong dream. Do not allow that procrastination to set in. Just take it. And also that you can fall, you can dust yourself off. Don't let failure be an option. Just keep pushing yourself forward, and never settle. And if you do settle, you'll never be happy. So just take the jump. Take the jump. Don't be afraid to start from the bottom. Don't be afraid to step into different roles of responsibility, and make sure that you step out of your comfort zone, because that was a fear of mine. Stay true to yourself, and lastly, stay humble. Stay humble.
Thank you, ma'am. And we'll move on to Ms. Bass.
So I would not change my path or anything like that. I love where I'm at. I love helping students. And I always use this as a coping mechanism. I always say everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we don't know that reason. There's things that haven't gone my way, and I get frustrated and mad. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have gone to this program, or I wish I would have done this. But at the end of the day, I'm happy where I'm at. And I think my biggest advice for students is to make connections. Take time to get to know your professors, your counselors, community members, because you never know when an opportunity is going to arise. And out of all of the jobs that I've had within this field, they've all come through a connection. They've all come from because someone was like, hey, someone emailed me and was like, hey, I have this job opportunity and I thought of you. I think you'd be great. Go ahead and apply. So you never know, like I said, because you start making these connections and people keep you in their minds. And then they think like, oh yeah, this student said this, like I'm gonna reach out and let them know about this. I think they'd be great for it. So take the time to do that, especially if you wanna go into graduate school and you're already thinking about it. Don't start when you transfer, start now at community college, start now where you're at, because like my Puente counselor wrote my letter of rec for grad school. So, start making those connections now, because then like for grad school, they're gonna ask you for like 2-3 letters of rec or how many ever. So don't wait to make the connections, start now, and that's just my biggest advice, just connections, networking, because like I said, you never know when something's gonna happen or opportunity is gonna rise.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Allred.
So I'll keep it very brief. I know we're here at the end. So everyone said everything like that I would say. So I'll just say, I love my profession, love what I do. Fabi is one of the reasons why I love it so much, right? Start at Puente student and you see that progression and returning back to Mesa. But I'll end it by just saying, know yourself, know what's good for you, right? So I know I didn't want to work behind a desk and I didn't want to have a lot of repetition. I wanted a lot of variety in my work, right? So, and I'll end it by saying summer vacation, Christmas vacation, spring break vacation, like I am all about having that time with my family.
You need a good balance. Yes. Thank you. So please don't forget that there is a survey you need to complete before ending your SIM meeting today. But I wanted to say thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and share with us. You guys carry a legacy that can be shared as inspiration to all of us in the Latin community. And you're a great reminder to keep pushing forward regardless of the difficulties that come our way. We all have one another to lean on. Sometimes we forget and we think that we're alone, but we have all things in common, and we all have the power to lift each other up. So on behalf of Puente, we want to say thank you again for the edifying words, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. I think you
Thanks,
guys
everyone.
did an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Great job.